And for a closer look at right now at where Florence is going, Chief Forecaster for Weather Bell Analytics, Joe Bastardi, joins us. So Florence downgraded now to a Category 2. Do you expect it to gain or lose strength today?
Well, I think it's going to gain some strength today, but keep in mind what we're looking at here is a storm that's expanding its wind field. Let's understand what the Saffir-Simpson scale says. It's looking at the maximum wind speed anywhere in a storm. And if you, for instance, suppose you had 115-mile-an-hour max winds and you're a Category 3, but that's only 10 miles wide. Is that storm worse than a storm that has 100-mile-an-hour winds, but they extend out 100 miles from the center? You got to understand, so the storm has spread out. It's a bigger storm. Hurricane force winds are going to be extending out 75, 100 miles to the northeast and 50 to 100 miles to the southwest of the center. So it's a 200-mile diameter of hurricane winds, whether the center winds are as strong as what they were. It has weakened a little bit. I actually had an explanation for that yesterday. I put on weatherbell.com's blog about it looked like it was getting distorted some by a little bit of dry air feeding into the storm, and also the unusual configuration of the sea surface temperatures. Usually you don't have warmer water to the northwest, and that may have been competing for the convergence at the center. In other words, that when these bands get over the warm water way out in front of the hurricane, they take energy away from the center of the storm. That being said, as it gets to the coast, or it gets closer to the coast, it should converge a little bit more. When you get more convergence and air piling in at the center, it's probably going to wrap up. It's a bigger storm this morning than it was yesterday, but it's sort of like arguing whether you got a fullback running the football or a tailback that's running the football. The tailback's a lot faster, but the fullback, if he hits you, is still going to pack a real punch. So there's no backing down on the magnitude of the storm in relation to where it's going to hit. Now, there is some disagreement, mainly with me and a little bit, that I think this storm is going to really slow down and turn southwest along the coast. A lot of the modeling, and the U.S. modeling, and certainly Hurricane Center, is bringing it inland further north. And I certainly, later on today, we have to see if this slowing down trend and the turn more to the southwest looks more apparent. But the fact is, for instance, you folks in Wilmington, you're going to be under a siege for 1 to 2 days of hurricane force wind gusts. And there's going to be 3 to 4 feet of rain in some places because of this. And so for the area, I think from Cape Lookout all the way down to Myrtle Beach and to about 50 miles inland, this is the equivalent of what Harvey did in around the Houston area as far as the rainfall goes. And the wind along the coast, I mean, it's going to rival any hurricane that's hit in there, especially that area from Cape Lookout to Cape Fear.
So bottom line it for us right now, you say that people should not be fooled. Florence is still the beast that it was advertised to be.
Yes, absolutely. You know, it's interesting in the calls you have to make when you are at the National Hurricane Center, because you have certain, I mean, literally it's a Category 2 according to the Saffir-Simpson scale. My power and impact scale that I developed 10 years ago after Ike. Remember, Ike went in as a Category 2, but anybody that experienced Ike in southeast Texas knows that was a major hurricane, right? As far as the damage, $25 billion of damage, and it was a fast-moving storm. So my argument is that, well, let's look at the overall power of the storm, and you can look at it on the cloud photograph. You don't need me to tell you. Just look at the cloud photograph. You can see it expanding like it is. So it's a big, powerful Atlantic hurricane coming right into North Carolina initially, and then we have to see whether it wants to turn back to the southwest and hug the coast all the way down to Charleston before finally making its way inland. Look, it's every bit, when it's all said and done, it's going to be every bit what was advertised, in spite of the details, and the devil is in the details at the end game of any storm.
Indeed, indeed. Joe Bastardi, Chief Forecaster for Weather Bell Analytics. Again, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.